All right, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Mayor and Council meeting of Monday, February 2nd, 2026. The time is 6 p.m. A quorum is present. This time, I would invite Mr. Lama's not here, so that's a habit. I would invite Mr. Mock to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council members, you have before you an agenda. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, at this time, public commentary. The first card I have is Mr. Patel. Mr. Patel, you're welcome to come to this mic right here, and that way you. Mr. Patel, as usually it is our practice, is that we ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes, but I'm not going to cut you off in the middle of a thought, okay?
I'll try to make it quick.
That's okay. Thank you, sir.
Mayor and council members, I'm writing this letter to first apologize on behalf of my business, which now enters its 20th year in operation. In 20 years, we've always maintained great diligence regarding verifying age for minors. On my 20th year of operation, one of my employees failed to do his due diligence, resulting in him selling to a minor. Since then, we have made a huge financial investment in purchasing ID scanners that help avoid human error. Along with the scanner, we have mandated employees and future employees undergo a Georgia alcohol seller server certification course. I'm requesting the board to review any suspensions to our license as this would be a great financial burden to the business, resulting in thousands of dollars in lost revenue from other products, as well as the responsible sale of alcohol products. I'm asking the board and mayor to kindly reduce suspension to 7 days, as 30 days would drastically put a significant financial burden to the business.
Thank you, Mr. Patel, for speaking.
Thank you.
All right. Our next public comment, I have a card for TJ Kaikabad.
Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to share some personal sentiments. February 2nd, 1990, my first day in Dalton. So today is the 36th anniversary. And I came here telling all my friends in Atlanta, 60 days, I'll be out of Dodge, back in the city. But this community, the hospitality, the genuineness of people at the 45-day mark, at least a condo, that's the end of it. This is a great community. Continuously, it's had great leadership. And I appreciate everything you guys do to keep our community moving forward. Yes, we have our differences. We don't see eye to eye on everything. But we are resolute in always being winners. And I start with our local leadership first and say, thank you for making Dalton what it is. Thank you for being the stewards of great people, great businesses, and I appreciate the opportunity to live in heaven. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your kind comments. All right, their presentations, item number 1, staff reports.
We do have one this evening, Madam Mayor, Margaret Thigpen, Director of Tourism.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Councilman. As you've heard me say many times, we can't do what we do for our community with our economic engines. So tonight, on behalf of WSL, World Sports League, who brings about 11 to 12 tournaments to our community a year, has asked me to present the award of Complex of the Year to Heritage Point Park. So I just wanted to do that tonight. And again, thank you. Thank Steve and his team for helping us do what we do for our community.
Bruce, if we could get a photo, that would be great.
Of just Steve and the award.
You presenting it to Steve.
Okay.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could, I would just also like to recognize the state for assisting the city with funding for the turf field renovation at Heritage Point. That was a project that brought a lot of resiliency to Heritage Point. As Margaret would tell you, we host a lot of regional multi-day tournaments, and one of the issues in the past has been when we get a North Georgia summer thunderstorm and folks have traveled from out of town to play at the facility. The fields were not very resilient until we were able to convert the infields to synthetic turf. So I would like to thank Representative Carpenter and State Senator Chuck Payne for their efforts in supporting the city and applying for a grant through the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget.
Thank you. Item number 2, under minutes, Mayor and Council regular meeting minutes of January 20th, 2026. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item number 3, Mayor and Council special called meeting minutes of January 27th, 2026. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, under new business, item number 4, review of Public Safety Commission hearing decision regarding CMG Dalton Development doing business as Walnut Express.
Good evening,
Jonathan.
Mayor and council members. Before you is the review of an alcohol hearing decision from the Public Safety Commission regarding CMG Dalton Development doing business as Walnut Express. That entity was found guilty of a second alcohol license violation selling to a minor. That hearing occurred on December the 16th. And you have been given the record to review. As you know, Section 6234 of the Dalton Code provides that the mayor and council is to do a review of the record. You're not taking additional evidence or testimony. You're just reviewing the record to determine if there is sufficient evidence to support the findings of the Public Safety Commission. The Public Safety Commission determined that Walnut Express should have a $2,500 fine and a 30-day suspension, and that is consistent with the table that is in our ordinance for a second violation within 36 months. And so that's what's before you now.
All right, council members, do you have any questions or comments on this matter?
I do. I think after reading the whole transcript and seeing Mr. Patel's reaction and actions to clear up this issue, he's gone above and beyond to alleviate it and make sure it doesn't happen again. I know the table states that a 30-day suspension is what needs to be done. I'd like to recommend we do a 2-week suspension instead of 30 days. And that would be my motion.
I would second that motion.
I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, item number, so the motion carries.
Did we have?
Hold on 1 second.
Second.
Do we need 3 affirmative votes,
Uh,
Counselor?
Well, with the quorum being made up of what it is, 2 should carry.
Okay.
2 should carry, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Item number 5, first reading ordinance 26-02 to amend chapter 26 of the 2001 revised code of the city of Dalton, Georgia, captioned businesses to reserve sections 26-333 through 26-344, and by the addition of a new article X captioned vape shops, to provide for an effective date, to provide for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, to provide for severability, and for other purposes.
Madam Mayor and council members, you may recall the city attorney provided a comprehensive overview of the vape shop ordinance draft at the work session of January 5th, 2026. Since that presentation, no changes have been made to the working draft. I wanted just to take a brief moment to kind of highlight some of the various sections of the code that are relevant as the council considers adoption. As you read, this is only a first reading, and we would intend to bring this back up for a second reading and a vote at our next regular scheduled council meeting of February. But again, just to provide a general overview, currently the city does not have any regulatory ordinance for vape shops, and there have been a number of concerns presented with regards to the proliferation of vape shops in the community. And quite frankly, this is not only an issue for Dalton, but something quite frequently I receive questions from other city managers about concerns about these various facilities popping up, and the fact that other than potentially some state regulations, there are many communities that are deciding how to regulate this on a local level as well. So the ordinance draft for your consideration defines what a vape shop is. The city attorney, clerk's office, and others work diligently to isolate the type of business as opposed to being any business that sells any kind of nicotine product. As you can see, the definition is clearly defined. Businesses that are selling the consumable vapor products, vapor devices, and several other regulated products as defined in the ordinance. And it clearly states the principal business activity means any of the 5 items referenced below. You know, things like if it offers more than 500 regulated products for sale, if 25% or more of the establishment's gross revenue is derived from the sale of regulated products, maintains at least 25% of its floor space for display or sale of regulated products, maintains at least 500 square feet of its floor space for the display or sale of regulated products. And then the establishment regularly makes regulated products available for sale in any medium as an establishment that caters to customer interest in regulated products. So if any of those points are met, they would be deemed a vape shop under the definition of the code. So again, just highlighting some of the subsections within the ordinance that are relevant. Section 26-346 defines the purposes of the article. Section 26-374 states that a license is required if you operate a vape shop, and that license would be, the licensing process would be very similar to the alcoholic beverage license process through the city clerk's office. Prescribes a fee of $5,000 per year to operate a vape shop, that the license will be good only for the calendar year and will expire on December 31st of each year. Section 348 notes the application requirements, requiring a survey, application fee, statement identifying the ownership. If anyone has more than 5% ownership share, they have to be identified in the applications. They also have to consent to a criminal background review, along with providing fingerprints so that can be done accordingly. Section 349 defines the Public Safety Commission's powers and duties. So again, it would function very similar to our current alcohol license process, whereby they would screen the initial applications, renewals. They would also be the body that determines, reviews any particular offenses requiring penalty, suspension, or revocation of the vape shop license. Section 350 defines the mayor and council role, which again would be similar to the alcohol code, whereby the Public Safety Commission would provide a recommendation and the council would vote to approve or deny such applications, as well as any kind of penalties that were previously mentioned. Section 352 provides the location requirements, and as you can see, it prescribes the distances between a proposed vape shop and any schools or any other sensitive areas as defined in the code, as well as notating that they would not be allowed within the central business district, which is downtown, or the overlay district, which is West Walnut Avenue. Those are the overlay district already prescribes that vape shops are not allowed. And again, keeping in mind there may be some that are already in existence that would be considered legal non-conforming until they close or move, things like that. Section 353, subsection 353 describes who would be disqualified from obtaining a license. And I will not read all of this, but you have to be at least 21 years of age. You can't be convicted of any felony or misdemeanor involving the usage, distribution, or possession of controlled substances. And there are several other things that would disqualify a candidate from receiving a license. Finally, the last slide is Section 355 notes that license are non-transferable. Section 250, I believe that's 356, the general regulation of business operations, saying when they can be open and closed, things like that. Section 357 have to do with the suspension, revocation, or forfeiture of license. 358 to do with enforcement. And then finally, one thing that, again, should be a consideration of the council in your review of the draft is, as you may recall, we put a cap on the number of liquor store license, which was one per 2,500 residents based of the city of Dalton based on the decennial census. That language was carried into this ordinance, but the city clerk's office has shared with me that under our current OTC database, there are only eight vape stores currently in existence. So the language as currently drafted would allow there to be up to 5 or 6 additional vape shops. So if the council has a desire to limit it based on the number of licenses that are, number of stores that are already in existence, this population figure would have to be adjusted. Or if it desired to be 10 or something like that, we would have to modify the population language, because right now it matches the liquor store population limits. So the city attorney went into much more detail at the prior work session, but we'd be happy to answer any questions. And also, if there are any requested amendments, that we just capture those before the second reading so that we can circulate a revised draft.
Any comments or questions?
I just have one quick question. When you said close or move, so if they like move an address, they lose their license?
I would defer to city attorney.
They'd need to reapply.
Okay, just if they were to move.
That's right.
Okay.
And one important point, as I mentioned, if they would be in violation of the adopted code, they would not be able to move back into if they were in violation of the code. So right now they would be grandfathered, for example, if they're in the downtown district or in the overlay district. But if they ever closed or relocated, they would not be eligible under the code to go back into those restricted areas.
Okay.
All right, any further questions?
I have just a hypothetical question. I know this is limited to supposedly establishments that primarily just sell this, rather than other establishments that may have it as a smaller part of their.
Right.
I guess hypothetically, we could, I know these other people are grandfathered in already, but we could just say in the future, you can't have a freestanding vape shop. You would have to just do it as a smaller part of your business, I guess. Hypothetically, we could do that.
So, Mr. Fair, we would need to, we've tried to be really careful with the ordinance in terms of balancing the business interest versus the health and safety interest. And so, and that's what the law requires, that we take a close look at that. I need to go back and look at that in particular. But that's why we have it drafted the way it is, to allow those businesses that currently sell as not a primary, it's not the primary purpose of their business. We're trying not to capture those.
Yeah, I understand. I wouldn't want to harm any of them that are already here. Obviously, they're grandfathered in. I was just looking more toward the future.
Sure.
All right, any further comments or questions?
One more.
Yeah.
I'm done. It is somewhere, unless I missed it, like distance from each other, correct? Or no?
Yes, there is a section on distance, and it has some restrictions on distances from religious.
Yes, I think it's in this slide 352,
That's right.
item number 2, within 3,000 feet of any parcel upon which another vape shop is located.
And also schools and parks.
1,000 feet of a religious facility or school, within 3,000 feet of another vape shop within the overlay district or within the central business districts. Those locations would be ineligible for a license.
Okay.
And again, it would be similar to our alcohol licensing process, where they would have to hire a registered land surveyor to survey the location. And if any of those sensitive areas are identified in the land survey, the surveyor would have to establish the distance to verify for the clerk's office that they meet the requirements.
I do have another question. I know we keep referring back and forth to comparing it to the alcohol ordinance, but is my recollection correct that you can't legally sell alcohol like in a grocery store, for instance, not distilled spirits? Is that
Not distilled spirits.
right? So it's really not comparing apples to oranges. I mean, we couldn't make an ordinance for alcohol, which just prohibited alcohol to be sold in like a grocery store establishment, because they can't leave, they have to be freestanding to sell alcohol.
Right. I mean, we have to certainly pay attention to state law on those
Exactly.
sorts of
Vape
things.
products could be sold in a bigger store where you got lots of other merchandise in addition to just these products.
They could. This is really targeted toward businesses that's their primary business.
Just to sell vape. I understand. I just want to get it straight in my head.
Sure.
Okay.
Any further comments or questions? And as city administrator said, this will be eligible to be voted upon at our next council meeting. All right, item number 6, first reading ordinance 26-03, the request of the Whitfield County Board of Commissioners and the City of Dalton Mayor and Council to make proposed amendments to the Unified Zoning Ordinance text to add the definition for biohazard waste, biological waste, and hazardous waste, and to update the permitted use table to add a new line item for biohazard waste, biological waste, and hazardous waste. Delete section 4-6-13 and replace amend the requirements for the UPUD zoning district and for other purposes. Ethan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. We have a couple of text amendments before us here, and these came to be largely from observing some other issues in other communities nearby. And we wanted to make sure that we were getting out in front of things and addressing things in the zoning ordinance that we might have not anticipated previously. And some of these would be creating different definitions to define biohazard waste, biological waste, and hazardous waste. As well as data centers, which of course is a very big topic nowadays across the state. And we did want to get a clear definition for what a data center is in the zoning ordinance. And then, of course, addressing where these uses would be permitted in the zoning ordinance. And so for biological waste, biohazard waste, and hazardous waste, those would be permitted in the M1 and M2 districts. That's the light industry and the heavy industrial zone districts. And then, of course, we did put the requirement there that any of those hazardous waste or waste facilities would meet any additional local, state, and federal regulations for that waste management. In order to break this up so we don't get too far. And does anybody have any questions regarding the waste facilities?
So they'd have to have a special use permit in addition to the zoning? Is that what you're saying?
For the waste, yes, they would need a special use permit in addition to the zoning. And what that would allow essentially is regardless of the zone district, anytime anybody would propose one of these, they would have to come before both the planning commission, city council, whichever jurisdiction that they would be within. And any special conditions could be applied to those developments as well. Moving to the next would be the data centers. Again, data center, we have the definition. And based on the definition, where would those be permitted in the zoning ordinance? And they were proposed as being allowed or permitted in the M2 zone district, and that would be permitted without special use by right. And that was the motion made during the planning commission meeting for all these, was to approve it as written, with the data centers being permitted only in the M2 zone district by right.
So the way this is worded here, is that incorrect?
Yes, I believe this is incorrect. If it's allowed outright in M2 without special use.
Yes, that one, the special use would need to be stricken from that.
For data centers?
Yes, sir. Just for data centers, it would remain in effect for the waste hazard material handling. And in the urban PUD, the UPUD zone district, that of course is a planned unit development type district, which is unique as compared to typical zoning and a standard zone district, residential zone districts. You essentially meet certain setbacks, lot sizes, and square footage per dwellings. But a while back, there was some intention to create some flexibility for infill development, particularly within the city. And the standard planned unit development zoning ordinance or zone district requires you to have at least 15 acres, which isn't a very effective infill design. So the urban planned unit development allows us to work on much smaller spaces. But as with any planned unit development, it's not an out and out rezoning where the property or is just rezoned or a zone district is applied open-ended with the opportunity to design and redesign at the discretion of the property owner. Planned unit development requires a site plan be submitted through the zoning process with both the planning commission as well as city council, and any, of course, applicable department heads would have time to review that prior to the approval of the UPUD zone district. And so any UPUD would have to come before the planning commission and mayor and council, and it would have to come with a site plan that would show us how many lots they're going to create, the size of the dwellings, the overall design, parking, all of those types of things as part of the zoning approval process. And any substantial change to that plan in moving forward, it would have to come back and go all the way through that zoning process again. What this allows us to do is create more urban residential lot design, be a little bit more creative without going down the pathway of variances, which is a slippery slope that can create a precedent that we may not want to set. This allows us to be more intentful with infill development and ensure that the design is going to be a catalyst for the area. And of course, the first example of that will hopefully soon be going vertical over on South Hamilton Street, the project with the Joint Development Authority and the Governor's Rural Workforce Housing Initiative project. This change to the unified plan or the urban planned unit development within the unified zoning ordinance would simply allow for an option of the development to be created with a central green space. And the best way to visualize that, I believe, is on the screen. You can get an idea of what that would look like, and that's where the entire development would be built around and surrounding this green space. Of course, there's a lot of factors that were taken into consideration by staff here to ensure that Parking is addressed, easements and pedestrian connectivity and the courtyard access. And of course, this would essentially deal with green space and permanent easements that would address that as well. So it's a number of factors here. Don't want to bore you to death and go through those individually. But again, this is a highly regulated zone district that ultimately requires review and approval on the level of a plat, subdivision plat approval process at the point of rezoning. So there's a lot of opportunity to review both with our staff, the city staff, planning commission, and ultimately the city council, mayor and council as the last approval step for that. And this just creates another design element that hopefully would create some opportunity for some quality infill and redevelopment. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions or comments on this item?
If I could just add, just for the sake of context, I think it's helpful to understand how this deviates slightly from what the zoning ordinance requires today. I believe the zoning ordinance requires that all subdivided lots have 50 feet of public road frontage. And when you're talking about the city where the UPUD might be a great tool to deliver a quality workforce, affordable housing project, this would provide some flexibility. So the current code requires that you have 50 foot of public road frontage to be a developable lot, whereby this would allow platting off of a common green space area that would be put into a perpetual easement. And as Ethan mentioned, obviously our city staff would be very involved with the plan review when this is presented to make sure it meets the requirements of all local codes. I have shared this with Chief Daniel to get his feedback as well as Public Works Director Townsend. And they both, although there will be some intricacies during the plan review stage, they did not signal any kind of opposition or any concerns that would prevent the council from moving forward.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, if not, this will be eligible to be heard and voted upon at our next meeting. Item number 7, first reading ordinance 26-04, the request of Viviana Ramirez to rezone from general commercial C2 to medium density single family residential R3, a tract of land totaling 0.33 acres located at 409 South Spencer Street, Dalton, Georgia, parcel 12-238-19-002.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The rezoning here at first was a unique one, certainly for the area, but upon closer inspection, there are a number of single-family homes around the subject property. And the proposal by the petitioner, they've already done a significant amount of due diligence on architectural renderings in order to convert the existing commercial building on the subject property to a single-family detached dwelling. This rezoning to this medium-density single-family residential would meet all the baseline criteria in the zoning ordinance to ensure that this property would be in compliance with the zoning ordinance. Without this rezoning, of course, the property could only be used for commercial purposes in the C2 zone district. So this would change the zoning of the property from C2 to R3 if approved, and that would only allow for single-family detached dwellings. There would be, at that point, in moving forward, unless the property is rezoned in the future, would only be used for single-family residential purpose. Petitioner did state that this is where they intend to have their full-time residence. And they have developed a number of the properties to the north along East Morris Street, and I believe wanted a closer dwelling site there. So they're going to remodel, redevelop the subject property for residential use. Of course, it has significant parking area as a commercial building, so we didn't see any issues with that. Got no negative feedback from any city department heads early on in the analysis of the property. And again, while it is a big change from C2 to R3, in this area, there are a number of single-family detached dwellings, and this, of course, may be a good catalyst for further redevelopment, other infill development, other types of residential development around the downtown as it begins to grow. So overall, the staff very supportive of the rezoning proposal. Be happy to answer any question. We received no really comments in opposition. There was some dispute at the public hearing regarding the property. I believe it is to the northeast, where there is an adjacent event center. And there was some concern regarding the owner or the business owners of that event center regarding parking. But in the back and forth comments of the public hearing, it was determined that the issues that the neighbors had was not as much the residential use of the subject property so much as the civil dispute between parking and them being able to park on essentially the subject property. So we did hear some comments over that and some concern regarding that conflict. But the planning commission made a unanimous recommendation to approve the rezoning as presented, as well as the staff recommendation was positive. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? I've driven past the property. There's single-family residents directly across the street from this. So the immediate neighbors across the street are already a single-family residential, so.
Were they just grandfathered in to other people?
Some of them are in fact zoned R5 rural residential. So there's a number that are actually zoned in conformity for single-family homes.
And we appreciate the petitioners being here tonight. Mr. and Mrs. Ramirez are here. At our next scheduled meeting, we'll be eligible to vote on this, and we're required to read it once before we're able to vote on it. Are there any other questions or comments on item 7? Okay, thank you, Ethan. All right, if there is no further business before us, nothing under supplemental business, do not believe we have any announcements. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion?